Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Tinner's Trail, which is a game from 2008 designed by Martin Wallace that has been redeveloped, renewed, revamped by Alley Cat Games with new development by David Digby, and it's on Kickstarter right this second. There'll be a link up in the corner of the screen or in the description that will take you straight to the campaign page where you can see all of the final stuff, all of the goodies that you can get, the extra expansions that it will come with, but most importantly, what the final thing will look like, because I'll say before we start, as always with Kickstarter videos, this is a prototype. It's a representation of what the final thing will look like, but they're prototype pieces. Specifically, all of these wooden bits here that I've kind of messily got strewn about, they won't be that size. In the final game, I have this development board here with its columns. That's where the pieces are supposed to be. I've just decided to nudge off columns 1 and 4 just so there's kind of space to breathe for the lovely miners. So in this game, we are in Cornwall, the kind of foot part of the UK, and we are doing all sorts of Cornish things like bidding in auctions, placing mines, harvesting the juicy goodness from deep down in the earth, and perhaps most importantly, eating Cornish pasties for money. I'm going to be giving you a quick overview of what you do in the game, and I've set it up for 2 players. So in a game with more players, there are more tiles out on the board. There is a D area, I've only got A to C here, and there are extra decks. There's a D deck, there's a wildcard deck. We don't need that for 2 players. And there are some extra rules for playing with 2 players, specifically for the auction part, because auctions don't usually work as well with 2 players, but Tinner's Trail's thought of that. But the main structure of the game is the same no matter what the player count, because the original Tinner's Trail only did 3 to 4 players, but this brand new version does 1 to 5 players, and I'll talk a little bit about the solo mode at the end of the video. So we have all of our mines here and our cubes and stuff. We have 20 money each. Money and points are tracked on the same track, but you'll have different markers for it. Again, just prototype. I've just got a cube for the money and a disc for the points. And first things first, we set the ore prices. So we have these 3 dice here, and we have tin and copper. Their prices are represented on here. You roll all 3 dice, and they are special dice. You know, they're not just 1 to 6s. You add up the values on all of the dice. So I'm doing this for tin. It's 1 plus 3. The value is 4. So I would put a tin cube on there to show that the selling price for tin this round is going to be 4. There are 4 rounds in the game. You do the same again for copper. So, wow, cheap as chips. This round, it's just £2 for some copper. And it tells you there is a little table in the middle, of course, based on your roll where you put these cubes. And so this is going to have an effect for next round when we roll the dice. Because these are at their minimum values, we're going to add 1 to that die roll. And similarly, if I'd rolled the most expensive price for any of the cubes, the die roll would have 1 subtracted from it next round. But for now, we're not going to get much money for any of our stuff. So now we've set the ore prices, we move on to the main chunk of the game, the actions. There are all sorts of actions that we can do that I'll tell you about now, but it mainly concerns this action track here. So we have 10 action points to spend. Whoever spent the fewest work points will go next. And if there are 2 people in the same column, which there will always be at the start of the game when everyone's on 0, the person highest up is going next. So I would choose an action, and based on the number of action points it would take, and it tells you just on this handy guide how many action points each takes. So if I was to spend 3 action points, and Marty here was only to spend 2, he would go next. So it might be worth, taking an action that's got fewer action points just so you could take a couple in a row. If you put in your disc in the same column as somewhere else, it goes underneath, so the top person is going next. And if you're towards the end here, if I've spent 9 action points, I can't take any actions that would cause me to go over the line. I only have 1 to spend, so I would have to choose an action that just had 1, or I'd have to pass, which takes no action points. So perhaps the main action is building mines. You can see we've got mines each here, and we're trying to put them in these areas on the board. You place the auction marker in an area of your choice, and that's going to trigger an auction there. The winner of that auction is going to spend 2 action points and pay their winning bid to build their mine in that area. So some tiles are face up, and that's again going to be different based on the player count. At 2 players, there is just 1 mine in each of the areas face up. So we know how much copper, tin, and water is going to end up in that area. So copper and tin, potentially lucrative opportunities. Water is a hurdle. It either needs to be removed or it's going to be an extra expense when you want to mine the resources from that area. So you can start an auction anywhere. It can be in a place that you can see, or it can be in one of the covered up spaces. Now, there will be opportunities later on to peek at some of these things, so you might have advanced knowledge of them. You do have a peek marker that tells other players that you've seen that tile. If you were to trigger an auction, in a face down area, we do have some cards in our hand. So playing a card will improve the mine, but it gives you some benefits as the person who triggered the auction. So this is in area B, so you would need to play a card with B on it. But I could play this card as I'm triggering this auction, and I would get to peek at what this mine is, so I can see how valuable it is for myself. So this mine would have no copper in it, just 1 tin and 2 water, so not a great mine. So I could keep that to myself though and pretend that it's really good. But the card I've played will have an effect on it as well. So this card is going to remove a water. Now if you play a card at the beginning of the auction, it doesn't cost you extra money. You do have the opportunity to play the card after you've won the auction, if a card hasn't already been played, but then it will cost you money because you know what you're getting. In a 2-player game though, this is how the auction is changed. A card has to be played. You either have the option of playing it yourself from your hand, or draw one from the top of the appropriate deck. So I would draw one from the B deck instead if I didn't want to play my card. The effects will go off, but this will be the starting auction price. So in this case, it would just start at £1, which is what the auctions start at in a normal game. The more people that have passed in a multiplayer game, the more expensive the auctions get. For every player that's passed, the starting price has to be £1 more. So I would have the option of either starting that auction at £1 or drawing from the deck. But obviously, if I don't play the card, I don't get to peek at that mine and see that it's a bit of a naff one. So we would then have the auction going clockwise between the players. You can only participate in the auction if you've got at least 2 available work points, because the winner has to pay 2 work points. You need to have at least 1 unbuilt mine and enough money to pay for your bid, obviously. So I could have tricked Marty into thinking this was a great mine and he paid like 6 for it, and he would get to put his mine in this area and reveal that, oh, it doesn't get that many useful cubes. It gets a tin and 2 water. I have helped him out a little bit though, because the card I played removes one of those water cubes. There are other benefits to cards, like adding more ore there, or adding miners, which will let you take more cubes out of the mine in one go later, or steam pumps, which will remove more water. And of course, for winning the auction, you'd have to pay us 2 action points. And go at the top there. The next action you can take is extracting the ore. So you have to have a mine to be able to do this, of course. Let's imagine someone's got a more effective mine out there. For the extract ore action, it's 1 action point. Choose one of your mines and take a number of tin or copper, your choice, up to your extraction capacity, which is 2 for your mine, so it's just a base 2, and it's increased by 1 for every miner you've got there, every port, so the boats, and every train. So each of those wooden pieces adds 1 to your extraction capacity. So right here, I would only be able to take 2 cubes out, and maybe I'd want tin, because this round, tin is £4 each, and copper's only £2 each to sell. There is a catch though. There is a cost to extracting the cubes, which is basically £1 for every water cube here. So each cube I extract here is going to cost me £3 right now, and I only sell them for £4, so it's just a £1 profit. So I would maybe want to wait a little longer to get the most benefit out of that. But hey, in this example, I'm daft. So that would cost me £6. The cubes go in front of you until the end of the round, and then we'll deal with them. However many cubes you extracted, you add 1 water, because that water rushes in there to replace what you dug out. There are a lot of development actions where you can add these wooden pieces to areas on the board. They can go anywhere, whether a mine's been built there or not, but each area can only have 1 of each piece in it. And the adits that go between areas can only have 1 on each border, and you can never move them. So it's an action point to put a miner somewhere. That would add 1 to your extraction capability. It's 2 action points to add a port. It has to go on an area that borders the sea. That adds 1 to your mining capacity, but it also removes a water cube from that area as well. If you're placing any of these things that remove water on an area that hasn't had a mine yet, you get drainage tokens on there instead, and when that mine is built, that much water is removed. It's 2 action points for a train, which again will increase your mining capacity by 1. It removes 2 water cubes from the area you put it in, and 1 additional water cube from every adjacent area as well. So you're potentially helping out, maybe yourself, but other people too. For 3 action points, you can build an adit. Now, these are tunnels that the miners used to build to take water away without having to bring it to the surface. And often when they built them, it would reveal new precious things under there. So an adit goes between 2 areas. It removes a water cube from each area and adds a tin and a copper to each area as well. The last thing you can add are steam pumps. They're 1 action each, and these don't actually go onto an area. There are groups of them, so a 1, a 1, a 2, and a 2. For 1 action point, you can grab a group, and for each pump, you can remove a water cube from anywhere on the board to the supply. The final action you can take is sell pasties. For each action point, you can sell Cornish pasties, which you have an unlimited supply of, for £1 each. So basically just get a bit of extra money for yourself. The last thing you can do is pass, which is usually something you want to do towards the end of your actions. You have to do it if you're already on the 10 space. When you pass, your marker goes down to the investment board over here. And basically, the earlier you pass, the better money to points conversion ratio you're going to get at the end of the round. So now we move into phase 3, that would be sell and invest. You look at all of the cubes that you extracted during the round and sell them for the amount on here. So in this example, Marty would have £8 from his 2 tin. And then he'd also mined 5 copper, so he'd get £10 from there. So he'd earned £18. So from our money now, we would look at the investment table here and look at the round it's in. So we're in the first round, so we just look at the first column. And I passed first. So I can spend £10 to get 22 points or £5 to get 10 points. Marty's is quite similar. He can spend £10 to get 21 points or £5 to get 10 points. So we probably wouldn't want to buy as many points in such a low yielding round, but the more money that you spend early, the more points you'll get, because you can see in round 4, £10 only gets you 13 points. At the end of the round, any of these development pieces that weren't bought are cleared out and we fill up the rows again as they were at the start of round 1. We keep the same player order, but move our markers back to the top of the action board there. The first player also gets to peek at a new area of the board. They place their marker on there to show that they've seen it, but you can get a bit of advanced knowledge as to what another mine is to see whether or not you would want to bid there. And we go again. There are 4 rounds, and the player with the most points wins. All your unbuilt mines and unmined copper and stuff is worth nothing, just the points that you bought from here. And that is the main game of Tinner's Trail. Now, this special edition has got 2 new expansions. The arsenic expansion, where when you build a mine, you can build an extra building there that will help you process arsenic, which is a new thing that you'll be able to sell, but it costs actions to sell it. And the emigration expansion, where when you take a miner, you can instead choose to take a miner of your colour, and it goes to an emigration board for an action point to give you some extra money, or developments, or other bonuses. Haven't got the components of those to show you, but you can see it all on the campaign page. And finally, there is also the Lord Wallace solo game, where Lord Wallace will have an action deck and will perform actions, bending the rules a bit of them, based on how many points he's got left and how much the different ords are worth. And there's also plenty of ways of changing the difficulty so he can provide you some stiff competition. I think the 2-player tweaks for the auction are lovely, still giving you the option of control by playing a card from your hand, but whether it's from the deck or your hand, giving that kind of variable start value to the auction means that it's more likely that the auctions are going to get a bit more competitive, as well as giving you the possibility that you might not be able to afford the auction you just started. If you were hoping for a nice cheap auction because the other player's got no money and you've got 4, so you're hoping to just make a nice clean sweep of the auction, and then you draw that 5 card and it just goes to pot. But if that happens as well, the development goes off the board. But regardless of the 2-player stuff, that's kind of what my mind jumps to. I think this is a fantastic game. It's really tense working out how you're going to spend. Suddenly 10 action points is not very many. As soon as you want to, do a couple of auctions and then improve a few places that you've won, you realise you've got to be a lot more selective about what you want to do. And as the development board starts to run out of things that you would like to improve your mines with, it's a very tight competition. And aside from all the other improvements that have been made to this edition, the original version was only 3 and 4 players. And so generally, I don't really think about those games because a lot of the time I'm playing 2 players. And so it's lovely for Tinner's Trail to kind of come back on the radar in that way. And it's got solo and stuff as well. So that is Tinner's Trail. It's on Kickstarter right now. Again, the campaign page is in the description. I don't think I can put it up there again. And you can check it out and see whether or not you would be interested. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see some more, you can see plenty of Alley Cat games on this channel by now. Maybe Dice Hospital. And there's over 400 other playthroughs on here too. Take your pick. Thank you very much for watching though, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye everyone.